Sir, nice to see you, sir.
Glad to be back.
All right, I want to talk to you about the whole issue of the Bush tax cuts, but first I want to ask you about the numbers last night, or the results in Delaware. I suppose that you were surprised. A lot of people were surprised.
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise. It looked like it was closing at the end, but we're happy that primary season's over, and we're going to support the Republican nominee everywhere in the country, including Delaware.
Can she win?
Absolutely. This is going to be a good year for Republicans.
You know, it sort of seemed a little bit like that in the beginning of the last 2 years. The Democrats were a little bit surprised by the Tea Party movement. They got yelled at the town hall meetings, and it looked like they sort of were tone deaf to what was going on in America, that the Americans were really upset. Now it seems like the Republicans are getting a little bit of a rude awakening. You've had Alaska, Utah, Delaware, the governor Republican nomination in New York. Are the politicians waking up that Americans might be a little bit agitated with what's going on?
It's important to remember when the real election is. It's November 2nd. All of this energy that you've seen on display in Republican primaries will now be directed 100% against Democrats. None of these Tea Party candidates are running as independents. It's all going to be part of the Republican movement to improve our numbers in the House and Senate.
So you don't see this as sort of that you're getting the carpet pulled off from underneath you as well?
No, what I want is more members. Right now I'm the leader of 41. I'd like to be the leader of a larger group after November 2nd.
All right. Now, taxes. You've introduced a bill to extend the Bush tax cuts to everybody.
Well, first let's get the nomenclature right.
Okay.
This has been tax policy for 10 years. When you use the terminology tax cut, you make it look like you're doing somebody a favor. This has been the tax level for 10 years. So this debate really is about a tax increase in the middle of a recession. Our friends on the other side say, well, it's just on the top two brackets. Well, who are those people? You know, it's 750,000 of our most successful small businesses. It would capture 50% of the small business income. It would impact 25% of the workforce in the middle of a recession. The good news is more and more Democrats are indicating that they agree with us. There's 7 now in the Senate. Steny Hoyer, the Democratic leader in the House today, said he would be open to extending for at least a period of time. Joe Manchin, who the governor of West Virginia is fighting for his life, trying to get elected to Robert Byrd's Senate seat, said today he thought they ought to be extended. What I've introduced would make it permanent law, the current tax rate, and avoid a tax increase in the middle of a recession.
Give me what you think is sort of a realistic timetable. You've introduced it. What's going to happen to it?
Well, it's hard to answer the hypothetical because the Democrats are in the majority. They've got to decide whether they want to have this debate right now. You know, it could occur after the election. If they want to have the debate now about the appropriateness of raising taxes in the middle of a recession, from a political point of view, we're happy to have that debate and look forward to it.
So in other words, it's not going to happen? Is that the message?
I don't know. You know, I think it'll be up to the majority to decide whether we have this debate now or whether we have it later. But it needs to be had because at the end of the year, taxes would go up for everyone. None of us think that's a good idea.
What about what Leader Boehner said in the House? It got a lot of play that he said, I hate to try to quote him off the top of my head, but he said something, if he had to or something, or if it came to that, he would vote for limiting the extension or the continuation of the current tax code to include everybody.
Well, I think it's important to remember that the best solution is to raise taxes on no one. That is my position. It's the position of all of my members. It's the position of 7 Democratic senators. And that is what ought to be done. So I don't think we need to answer any of these hypotheticals about what might be the ultimate outcome. What we need to do is have a majority commitment to raise taxes on no one in the middle of a recession.
How much do you think is politics? Because the one thing that sort of strikes me is that there's been no confusion as to when these tax cuts, or whatever you want to characterize them, I want to get the nomenclature right. We all knew they were going to expire in January. We all knew that. And there wasn't, nothing was done about it last January, February, March, and now we're inching up on election day. So suddenly everybody now wants to talk about taxes. So it's a little bit like the American people sit there and watch as the two parties sort of wrangle for position on the issue.
Well, the majority determines the timing, and I think initially they thought it was a great issue for them to go in and talk about raising taxes on, as they put it, the wealthy right before the election. I think they're now having serious thoughts about whether this is a good debate for them. And I would tell you, all of my members and some of their members think what ought to be done is that we ought not to raise taxes on anyone in the middle of a recession. So our view is, if you talking about the politics of it, the merits of it are clear. We shouldn't be raising taxes. But if you're talking about the politics of it, if they want to have this debate right before the election, that's great with us. My members are excited. We can't wait to get at it.
The whole point of the whole discussion about taxes, that's the political aspect of it, any sort of jockeying for position, is that taxes raise revenue. And the government is starving for money, and the president also thinks the Democratic philosophy is that if you get this money, we can then spend it and get the economy going. Of course, the Republican view is that you want to leave the money with a lot of people so they can do it themselves. I guess the question is, how's the economy doing? Are we trending upward or downward or holding water?
We're just limping along, like treading water. And look, we've tried all the government spending. We tried it on the stimulus. We tried it on the health care bill. We've hired lots of new federal employees with borrowed money. Look, the way to get the government more revenue is to get the private sector growing. And the way you do that as a starting place is to not sock our most productive small businesses in the country with a big tax increase. The only way we're going to increase government revenue and begin to narrow the deficit is to have a robust economy. We've tried government spending. It failed. The time to pivot and take care of the private sector is now. And the last thing you'd want to do is raise taxes in the middle of a recession on our most productive small businesses.